think it's fair to say that there's going to be a lot of change at West Ham this summer, whether that be on the pitch or behind the scenes. It does appear that we are going to go through another summer of transition at the club. Although I don't believe it'll be the same levels possibly as last time in terms of, i.e., massive investment, a lot of gambles. I think that there's just going to be quite a fair bit of change. I mean, we know the situation with Declan Rice. I don't want to talk about that in this video, but we know that that's going to be a key factor in terms of our personnel on the pitch. But one thing that's quite interesting, we have reported on this slightly, but there's more to this now, is the situation regarding the director of football. So these are from very reliable sources. These are from ex-WHU employee and all the top sort of reliable West Ham news outlets are basically suggesting that this is now definitely going to happen. Now, I'll sort of break it down a little bit for you. So first of all, it's David Sullivan's made that decision, I believe, to get in the director of football. It appears that Rob Newman's going to be the fall guy for this season. David Sullivan isn't overly happy with his £200 million investment. That's, I think, what's the issue is here. He was hoping that West Ham would obviously push on from last season and the last couple of seasons. And we really, let's be honest, probably challenge the top four. That was probably the mindset, or at least to stay around the area. The fact we've been in a relegation battle all season long, I'm keeping the Europa Conference League aside at the moment. I don't want to dwell on that at the moment. Let's just focus on the Premier League. And that's a big frustration for Sullivan, it appears. And it appears then that he's going to make some changes. I actually don't think this is a bad thing. I think actually this is a pretty positive thing, but I think there's going to be some slight implications around it, especially regarding David Moyes, because David Moyes effectively appointed Rob Newman. He was his pick. They went to Manchester City to get Newman. That was who Moyes wanted. And the fact is that David Sullivan isn't happy about the situation. He isn't happy with what he's seen in return. So it looks like Newman's going to lose his job. That's how it looks. I might be completely wrong, but that appears to be the situation. Now, what it does appear, though, out of this is the fact that the club are now saying, well, we're going to go for a director of football. That indicates that David Sullivan actually is still keeping a backseat on the club affairs, especially in the playing side, which I think is a very good thing. Let's be honest, he's never really ever going to be completely 100% away from it, but it appears he's still going to say, right, he's going to give someone else the responsibility. There was question marks then surrounding Mark Noble's future. Well, what does that mean for him? Well, from what we understand it, we've reported on the West Ham Way, where this came from ex-WHU employee in his exclusive section on Patreon, that Mark Noble will be keeping his job. He will be here. That he's seen as someone that's going to be at the club for many years to come, which is fantastic news. But his role is very sporadic all over the place. There's no real. I think he feels he needs guidance, he needs help, he needs more support. So this is where the director of football comes in. So effectively, to me, that means he will be Mark Noble's boss, effectively, and Mark Noble will be focusing more on the academy side of things, as far as I understand it, as far as what X has reported. Now, the director of football is now the big question mark. Who's it going to be? Who's this director of football? This is going to be a big change at West Ham. Let's make no mistake about this. This is a big, big change. Effectively, now what you're going to have is someone that's working for Sullivan under, as the buffer between him and the manager and all the other sort of key areas of the football club. And he will be making the key decisions. So effectively, this man will be dealing with transfers. He'll be dealing with the recruitment side of things. He'll have his own recruitment team. So effectively, what it will mean is, like these big clubs, what they do is they have their own recruitment strategy, their own type of players they want, and their own type of managers they want. So effectively, they could go, okay, it isn't working with David Moyes, we're going to get someone in that will work the system, rather than get a manager in and say, right, you pick your players and we'll go to the market and try and build a team around your plans. That's not how it's now going to work. So it is a big change at West Ham. And it might not be a bad thing. As I say, I don't think it's a bad thing because it keeps Sullivan away, and that's what we want. We don't want a director. We're seeing it at Chelsea. We don't want these owners coming in and picking players and doing things. I just find it a bit of a disaster. I don't want it. We need to move forward. Now, the name we've got that appears to be the front runner. This is early days. West Ham has still got a season to finish yet. We've still got a trophy to lift. So we don't even know if we've got European football yet. But that is going to make a big, big difference in terms of who we're going to go for this summer, because we could be offering European football. We'll just lift a trophy, gives a little bit more stature to the football club. You look at it and think, well, that will dictate slightly who we're going to go for. We're not talking about actually names on transfers. We're going to talk about that in another video. But what we're going to talk about today is the director of football, which is, and then the front runner appears to be Paul Mitchell. Now, Paul Mitchell works for Monaco. He is a close friend, it appears, of Mark Noble. Now, that would seriously make sense because, as we've just said, as we've reported on the website and on Patreon and now obviously on this channel, is that Mark Noble needs guidance, needs more help, and needs more support. So it makes sense that it'd be someone that he knows and trusts. So Paul Mitchell, who works at Monaco, is Noble's friends. And also, we did report this on the website. And when I spoke to X about it, he wanted to stress that this is only what he's heard. It's not confirmed as true. But apparently, Paul Mitchell and his family have been looking for houses in Essex, so they're looking to move back to this area. So it is sort of shaping up. But however, there are other names in the hat. I think we've got who was the other name I got here? Michael Edwards of Liverpool. He's another name that's being bandied. But at the moment, it looks as though Paul Mitchell is the favoured guy at this stage. But it's a long way to go, as I say. Now, the interesting thing I do find with all of this is, one, David Moyes. Because David Moyes effectively, not been demoted, I would say, but he's had a lot of power taken away from him. Now, I imagine he's still going to have a say in things. I'm sure he's not just going to be like, well, you're not involved in any transfers now. It's all going to be down to this new guy. I'm sure that's not the case. But what it does throw out is, what sort of style do you want to play then? Do West Ham want to keep the style David Moyes adopts, which is basically play defensive and play on the counter-attack? Don't get me wrong, it seems to work for David Moyes, but maybe this new, let's just say it is Paul Mitchell, comes in and goes, no, that's not the plan for this club. We want to change it in different ways. I've got players I know I want to bring in and build this kind of team around. It's going to be very interesting, see how it all it pans out. But it does feel like we're giving ourselves so much to do this summer now. Considering the fact that we've got a sale of our captain that looks like it's going to be happening. So let's just say we're losing our talisman, we're losing our captain, we've got to replace him. Then you've got now a director of footballing coming in with his own ideas. And is it going to work with David Moyes? It does seem there's going to be a lot of change again. When really, after a summer that we had last season, you would hope it wouldn't be that much. XWHU employee has reported, he has given an update on this. We're going to do an article on the site, a bit more detail in that, and we'll elaborate a bit further. But it even appears that we're talking 6, maybe 7 players are going to be coming into the football club this summer. That's kind of what's been earmarked. So again, let's be honest, that's a lot of people coming into the club. Because don't forget, it's not just Rice leaving. We're talking about Lanzini. There's a few players that look like they're going to be leaving the club already. And whoever, Scamacca, is he going to be staying on? Not sure. It's very interesting. And you do wonder how David Moyes is going to feel about this, because effectively he's lost a lot of power here. Is he going to be happy with it? Now, the indication of what we're getting, really, is that David Moyes is going to be kept down as manager. Let's be honest, it appears that way. There doesn't seem to be any noises at all at the moment of David Moyes leaving the club or the club looking around for other managers. There was a little while ago, we were talking about Marco Silva. There was a few names that were being bandied around. Michael Carrick, who we admired, Will Steele. That all seems to have now just drifted away. Whether it be because we're busy now with the Conference League, and I don't know, maybe that is the reason. But I'm really starting to get the impression that David Moyes is going to be here next season, regardless if we win the trophy or not. I think the club have seen enough. I understand it. This is what X seems to be, what he's reporting. The club have seen enough to keep David Moyes at the club for another season. Look, I mean, the David Moyes debate is going to be one for the summer. We don't want to be doing that now. We've got other things to be thinking about. But what is interesting is the director of football. That's a big change at West Ham. That's a big change. And it's going to be interesting. I personally think it's a good thing. I really do. And I'd love to know your thoughts. If you do agree with that, if you do think that this is a positive step for West Ham, but it does bring about a bit more professionalism about the club, I find. And I don't want to go down the back, back where we were before, where we basically had the owner picking players and pushing them. And we had talk of, previous. I think Sam Allardyce maybe once said it, that he once went to train and the player just rocked up and didn't even know who he was, and David Sullivan signed him. So we don't want to be going down that road again. We want to have someone that's a bit more professional dealing with the club matters. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think actually it shows the club's actually going in the right direction. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And what it basically just shows at the moment is that West Ham, as we've known, are going to have a significant summer change. But let's be honest, the wheels are already very much in motion.